Breaking news alert. Viking Nation, 5 shockwaves just hit Minneapolis and the aftershocks are still rumbling through U.S. Bank Stadium. A veteran quarterback stands his ground in a storm of controversy, defending the decision that ended his season in pain and fire. A talented wide receiver finds himself caught in the shadows of 2 superstars, and whispers say he might be gone before the deadline. A defensive warrior sets his sights on a Week 9 comeback after vanishing for a month. With a neck injury that had the Purple Faithful holding their breath, the polarizing veteran quarterbacks suddenly get linked to Minnesota in wild trade rumors that have fans divided right down the middle, and the injury report drops with a mix of hope and heartbreak as key players fight their way back for the biggest divisional showdown of the season. Each of these revelations could redefine the Vikings' path forward, and some of them might just determine whether this team sinks or swims in the brutal NFC North. You're about to witness 5 stories that will shake your faith, test your loyalty, and remind you why being a Vikings fan means living on the edge of chaos. Buckle up, because the first bombshell is about to detonate, and it involves a quarterback who refused to quit, even when his body was screaming to stop. Hold on tight, Viking Nation, because this first story cuts straight to the bone. It's already got the entire league talking. A quarterback took the field last Thursday night against the Los Angeles Chargers wearing a shoulder harness that looked like it belonged in a medieval torture chamber, grimacing through every snap, clutching his arm after every hit, and still refusing to come out of the game even as the scoreboard turned into a nightmare and the pain became impossible to hide. Who is this warrior who stood in the pocket while his body was breaking down? It's none other than Carson Wentz, and on Wednesday, he came out swinging to defend both himself and the organization that's been taking heat from every corner of the football world. Wentz made it crystal clear that nobody forced him to play through a torn labrum and fractured shoulder socket, an injury he originally suffered on October 5th against the Cleveland Browns in London. "This isn't my first rodeo," Wentz said, his voice steady and defiant. "I'm not an idiot. I know what I was signing up for going out there. Nobody was forcing me, pressuring me, any of those things." The veteran quarterback pushed back hard against critics who questioned why head coach Kevin O'Connell didn't pull him from the game earlier, especially as the Vikings trailed 31-10 early in the 4th quarter and Wentz was visibly suffering on national television. But here's the thing, Viking Nation, Wentz never once asked to come out. Not once. He played through the bye week, suited up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 7, and then gutted out that brutal Thursday night game on a short week that left his shoulder with almost no time to recover. The result? A 37-10 blowout loss where Wentz completed just 15 of 27 passes for 144 yards, took 5 sacks, and spent the entire 4th quarter looking like he was one hit away from collapsing. When he finally got pulled with under 2 minutes left, Wentz threw his helmet at the bench, covered his face with a towel, and looked to the sky as if searching for answers that weren't coming. The images were haunting. The controversy was immediate, and now, with Wentz officially on injured reserve and headed for season-ending surgery, people are asking the hard questions. Should O'Connell have made the call? Should the medical staff have shut it down? Or was this simply a veteran quarterback making a choice that only he could make? Wentz insists it was the latter, and he wants the world to know that the Vikings organization did nothing wrong. He said the medical staff cleared him to play, that he wasn't at risk of making the injury structurally worse, and that it all came down to pain tolerance, something only he could measure. "I knew surgery was coming. I knew it needed to be fixed," Wentz admitted. "It was like, I don't want to come out of this game, as uncomfortable as this is." And that's the heart of this story, Viking Nation. A quarterback who loved this team so much, a team he grew up rooting for in North Dakota, that he was willing to sacrifice his body for a chance at victory, even when the odds were stacked against him and the pain was unbearable. But here's the brutal truth. Wentz is done for the season. His 2-3 record as a starter is over, and now the Vikings have to turn to J.J. McCarthy, the second-year quarterback who's been waiting in the wings, along with undrafted rookie Max Brosmer as the only other QB on the roster. The big question looming over this franchise is simple. Does the coaching staff trust McCarthy? Because if they didn't bench an injured and struggling Wentz for him when the game was already out of reach, what does that say about their confidence in the kid? Was Wentz's refusal to leave the field an act of courage or a sign that the Vikings weren't ready to hand the keys to their young quarterback? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, Carson Wentz left everything on that field, And whether you agree with his decision or not, you can't question his heart. He played through a dislocated shoulder, a torn labrum, and a fractured socket, and he never once backed down. That's Viking warrior spirit, even if it came at a cost that might haunt the season. So here's the question for you, Viking Nation. Was Wentz a hero for playing through the pain? Or should O'Connell have pulled him for his own good? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you respect the guts it took for Wentz to stay in that fight, hit that like button right now and show some love to a quarterback who gave everything for the purple and gold. But hold on, as shocking as that is, the next update cuts even deeper, and it's about a talented receiver who might be on his way out the door before the trade deadline. And just when fans thought the quarterback drama was the only fire burning inside this franchise, here comes the next bombshell, and it's aimed straight at the wide receiver room. The Minnesota Vikings have two of the most explosive pass catchers in the entire NFL. Justin Jefferson, the generational superstar who commands double teams on every route, and Jordan Addison, the explosive second-year weapon who's proving he's more than just a sidekick. But what about the guy who's on the field for 74% of the offensive snaps and barely gets the ball thrown his way? That's right, Viking Nation, we're talking about Yalen Naylor, the third receiver who's caught in the shadows of greatness and might be heading for the exit door before the November 5th trade deadline. ESPN's Kevin Seifert dropped a bombshell suggestion this week, writing that Naylor is a logical trade candidate, despite being a key piece in the Vikings' three-receiver formations. Why? Because in the Vikings' relentless effort to feed Jefferson and Addison, Naylor has been targeted just 26 times this entire season. Let that sink in. The fourth most used offensive player on the Vikings has been thrown to only 26 times in 8 games. He's caught 13 of those passes for 162 yards and 1 touchdown. Solid numbers, but nowhere near what you'd expect from someone who's on the field that much. So what's the problem? Simple. Jefferson is eating up $39 million against the 2026 salary cap, and Addison is eligible for a contract extension next offseason. The Vikings are all in on their top 2 receivers, and with veteran Adam Thielen back on the roster providing depth, Naylor has become expendable. And here's the kicker, he's about to hit free agency anyway. If the Vikings don't trade him now, they could lose him for nothing next year. So why not cash him while they still can and get something in return? Even if it's just a mid-round pick, it makes sense on paper, Viking Nation, but it also raises some uncomfortable questions. Is Minnesota giving up on depth at a position where one injury could derail the entire offense? What happens if Jefferson or Addison goes down and suddenly Naylor is the one who got away? And let's not forget, Naylor has shown flashes of brilliance when given a chance. He's fast, he's reliable, and he knows this offense inside and out. Trading him could come back to haunt the Vikings if they find themselves desperate for another weapon down the stretch. But here's the flip side. If the Vikings are serious about competing for a Super Bowl, they need to maximize every asset they have. Naylor's value is at a reasonable point right now, and there are plenty of contending teams in the AFC who could use a speedy slot receiver with playoff experience. The smart move, according to Seifert, would be to ship Naylor to an AFC team where he won't come back to haunt Minnesota in the postseason. That way, the Vikings get value for a player they're likely going to lose anyway, and Naylor gets a chance to shine somewhere else where he's not stuck behind the superstars. It's a business decision, plain and simple, but it's also a reminder of just how ruthless the NFL can be. Naylor has done everything the Vikings have asked of him. He's been a professional. He's stayed ready, and now his reward might be getting traded away before the deadline simply because this team has too much talent at his position. That's the harsh reality of playing in the shadow of Jefferson and Addison. No matter how good you are, there's only one football, and it's going to the guys who can change the game with one catch. So what do you think, Viking Nation? Should the Vikings trade Yalen Naylor and cash him while they can? Or should they hold on to him for depth and insurance? Is this a smart business move or a potential mistake that could blow up in their faces later? Let us know in the comments, and if you believe the Vikings need to keep every weapon they have for this playoff push, smash that subscribe button right now and prove your loyalty to the purple and gold. Because believe me, the story only gets wilder from here. The next chapter involves a defensive star who's been missing for a month and just set his sights on a Week 9 comeback. That could change everything. But trust me, the night isn't over, because the next headline is pure adrenaline and it's heading straight for the heart of this defense. The Vikings fell to 3-4 after that brutal Thursday night beatdown by the Chargers. And with Carson Wentz now out for the season, the pressure is mounting on J.J. McCarthy to deliver when he takes the field as the starting quarterback this Sunday. But here's the good news. Viking Nation, the defense might be getting a massive boost just in time for the biggest game of the season. And Van Ginkel, the veteran linebacker who's been sidelined since week 3 with a neck injury, told reporters this week that his goal is to return to the field on Sunday against the Detroit Lions. And if he does, it could be the spark this defense desperately needs. Let's rewind for a second and remind everyone just how important Andrew Van Ginkel is to this Vikings defense. Last season, the 7-year veteran exploded onto the scene with 5 sacks, earning his first Pro Bowl selection and proving he's one of the most underrated edge rushers in the entire league. He's fast, he's relentless, and he's the kind of player who can wreck an offensive game plan all by himself. But this season has been nothing short of a nightmare for Van Ginkel. He suffered a concussion in the season opener against the Chicago Bears, missed 1 game, and then returned in week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. But that comeback lasted all of 8 snaps before a neck injury forced him out of the game early. In those 8 snaps, Van Ginkel recorded the sacks, showing exactly how dominant he can be when healthy. But then the injury struck, and he's been out ever since, missing the last 4 games while the Vikings pass rush struggled to find its rhythm. Now, after weeks of uncertainty and careful recovery, Van Ginkel is eyeing a return against the Lions in a game that could define Minnesota's season. The Vikings need this win desperately. At 3-4, they're already in a hole in the NFC North, and the Lions are one of the hottest teams in the league. Losing this game would put the Vikings in a massive hole with the rest of the division pulling away. But getting Van Ginkel back, that changes everything. His presence alone forces offensive coordinators to game plan around him, and his ability to generate pressure up the middle or off the edge gives defensive coordinator Brian Flores another chess piece to work with in his exotic blitz packages. But here's the thing, Viking Nation, there's still some uncertainty around this injury. Van Ginkel told reporters that his return is the goal, but he also admitted that dealing with the neck injury has been a long process, and that he's been careful with the way I've been handling it. He refused to go into detail about the nature of the injury, and when asked if it might require surgery, he declined to comment. That's not exactly the kind of certainty you want to hear when you're banking on a key player to return for a must-win game. The good news, Van Ginkel participated fully in Wednesday's practice, along with J.J. McCarthy and left tackle Christian Darrisaw, who's been battling his own knee issues after aggravating an ACL injury from last season. All 3 players being full participants is a huge sign that the Vikings are getting healthier at the right time. But the bad news? The Vikings also saw Josh Oliver foot, Jeff Okudah concussion, and C.J. Ham missed practice entirely, which means the injury bug is still biting this roster in key spots. Van Ginkel admitted he's been itching to get back on the field. "It's been bothering me," he said, "and I can't wait to get back out there." That's the kind of attitude this team needs right now, Viking Nation. A warrior mentality from a player who knows what's at stake and isn't willing to let an injury keep him on the sidelines any longer. If Van Ginkel can return at full strength and wreak havoc on the Lions' offensive line, this defense suddenly becomes a lot more dangerous. And with the Lions dealing with their own injury issues, including safety Kirby Joseph, who didn't practice on Wednesday due to a knee injury, the Vikings have a real opportunity to steal a win on the road and get back into the playoff race. So here's the question, is Van Ginkel's return going to be the difference maker the Vikings need? Or is this defense still too banged up to stop a red-hot Lions offense? Do you trust this defense to step up in the biggest game of the season? Or are the injuries too much to overcome? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe Andrew Van Ginkel is about to remind the league why he's a Pro Bowler, hit that like button right now and show some love to a linebacker who's ready to go to war for the purple and gold. And listen, the next chapter is the kind of news that divides a fan base right down the middle, because the Vikings are suddenly being linked to 2 of the most polarizing veteran quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Stay with me, because what comes next will flip the script in ways nobody predicted. With Carson Wentz now officially on injured reserve and J.J. McCarthy set to make his first start since week 2, the Vikings suddenly find themselves in a precarious position at the most important position on the field. McCarthy is unproven. Undrafted rookie Max Brosmer is the only other quarterback on the roster. And while the Vikings just signed veteran John Wolford to the practice squad as a safety net, the fact remains that this team is rolling into a must-win game against the Lions, with a quarterback room that has almost zero experience. So what do the Vikings do? According to multiple reports and betting markets, Minnesota is being linked to not one, but to veteran quarterbacks who could potentially be added before the trade deadline. And here's the kicker: both of them are polarizing, controversial, and would cause an absolute firestorm if they actually ended up in purple and gold. Let's start with the first name, Russell Wilson, currently the backup quarterback for the New York Giants. According to a report from Polymarket, one of the largest online prediction markets in the world, the Vikings are among the teams being linked to Wilson as a potential trade target. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear, this hasn't been confirmed by any major NFL insiders like Schefter or Rappaport, so take it with a grain of salt. But Polymarket isn't just some random Twitter account chasing engagement. They have legitimate connections and track betting odds on major sports decisions. So when they say the Vikings are in the mix for Wilson, it's worth paying attention. So what would Russell Wilson bring to Minnesota? Well, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback with a decade of elite play in Seattle, but his recent years with the Denver Broncos were an absolute disaster, and his current role with the Giants as a backup behind rookie Jackson Dart doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Wilson isn't the same player he was 5 years ago. His arm strength has declined, his mobility is gone, and his decision-making has been questionable at best. But here's the thing, he's still a veteran presence who knows how to manage a game, and if the Vikings are truly worried about McCarthy's readiness, Wilson could serve as a short-term insurance policy. The problem: Viking Nation would absolutely lose their minds if this team traded for Russell Wilson. He's been a punching bag for fans and media alike over the past 2 years, and bringing him to Minnesota would be seen as a desperate move. That signals a lack of confidence in McCarthy. It would also mean spending assets, whether it's draft picks or cap space, on a quarterback who might not even play a single snap. That's a tough sell, Viking Nation. But if you think that's controversial, buckle up, because the second name on this list is even more explosive. According to another report circulating online, the Vikings are being linked to none other than Kirk Cousins, the veteran quarterback currently backing up rookie Michael Penix Jr. with the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, you read that right, Kirk Cousins. The man who spent 6 years as the Vikings starting quarterback, the man who signed a massive contract with Atlanta in free agency last year, and the man who has been mentioned in trade rumors all season long, could potentially return to Minneapolis. Now, let's pump the brakes for a second, because this rumor makes almost no sense on paper. Cousins reportedly wants a chance to start for a team, and the Vikings don't have a starting job available for him. The plan is McCarthy, and Cousins isn't going to force a trade to Minnesota just to sit behind a 23-year-old rookie. That's the exact situation he's trying to escape in Atlanta. So why is this rumor even a thing? Because the Vikings and Cousins have been linked together in speculation all season long, and every time Minnesota has a quarterback issue, his name pops up like a bad penny. It doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter that it's wildly unlikely. The fact that Cousins is even being mentioned in the same breath as the Vikings is enough to drive fans absolutely insane, and you better believe we're going to hear about it until the trade deadline passes. So here's the reality. Viking Nation, the Vikings probably aren't trading for Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. These are rumors, speculation, and betting market noise that may or may not have any real substance behind them. But the fact that these names are being floated at all tells you something important. There are serious questions about whether this team trusts J.J. McCarthy to carry them through the rest of the season, and if McCarthy struggles against the Lions on Sunday, you can bet those questions are going to get a whole lot louder. So what do you think? Would you want the Vikings to trade for Russell Wilson as an insurance policy? Would you lose your mind if Kirk Cousins returned to Minnesota? Or do you believe the Vikings need to ride or die with J.J. McCarthy and stop looking for shortcuts? Drop your take in the comments, and if you believe in McCarthy more than you hate the Packers, smash that subscribe button right now and prove your loyalty to this team. Because trust me, the final story is going to bring all of this chaos into focus, and it's all about the injury report. Heading into the biggest game of the season, And if you think that was wow, the second story might just redefine everything you thought you knew about this Vikings team heading into Sunday, because after all the drama, all the controversy, and all the uncertainty surrounding this franchise over the past week, the Minnesota Vikings finally caught a break. On Wednesday, the team released their first injury report ahead of the Week 9 showdown against the Detroit Lions. And for once, Viking Nation, the news was mostly positive. Let's start with the headline. J.J. McCarthy, Christian Darrisaw, and Andrew Van Ginkel all participated fully in practice. That's right, the three most important players, dealing with injuries, all practiced without limitations, putting them on track to play on Sunday in a game that could make or break Minnesota's season. McCarthy, who's been sidelined since week 2 with a high ankle sprain, is officially ready to reclaim his role as the starting quarterback after watching Carson Wentz battle through pain and ultimately end his season. McCarthy is stepping back into the spotlight with a chance to prove he's the future of this franchise. But here's the thing, Viking Nation, McCarthy only played well in one of the 8 quarters he appeared in earlier this season. The rest of the time, he looked like a rookie who wasn't ready for the speed of the NFL, so the pressure is on. If McCarthy struggles against the Lions, the doubts are going to come flooding back, and the Vikings might find themselves in an even worse position than they were with Wentz under center. Christian Darrisaw's return is equally critical. The left tackle has been battling a knee injury all season after suffering a torn ACL last year, and he aggravated that injury in Week 8 against the Chargers. Losing Darrisaw would be catastrophic for this offensive line, especially with a young quarterback making his first start in over a month. But seeing him practice fully on Wednesday is a huge relief, and if he can suit up on Sunday, it gives McCarthy a much better chance to stay upright and make plays down the field. And then there's Andrew Van Ginkel, the Pro Bowl linebacker who's been out since Week 3 with a neck injury. As we talked about earlier, Van Ginkel is eyeing a return, and his full participation in practice is the best sign yet that he's ready to go. If he can get on the field and generate pressure on the Lions quarterback, this defense suddenly becomes a lot more dangerous. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, Viking Nation. The injury report also shows some red flags. Tight end Josh Oliver foot, cornerback Jeff Okudah concussion, and fullback C.J. Ham all missed practice entirely, which means the Vikings are still dealing with key absences on both sides of the ball. Losing Oliver hurts the run game, as he's been a key blocker in Minnesota's rushing attack. Okudah's absence in the secondary could be problematic against the Lions' offense that loves to spread the field, and Ham's versatility as a blocker and pass catcher out of the backfield will be missed if he can't go. On top of that, cornerback Isaiah Rodgers' shoulder, right tackle Brian O'Neill knee, and edge rusher Jonathan Greenard ankle all practiced on a limited basis, meaning they're banged up but still pushing through. Greenard, in particular, will be a player to watch throughout the week. He injured his ankle against the Chargers, and if he can't play at full strength on Sunday, it puts even more pressure on Van Ginkel to deliver as the primary pass rusher. Now let's talk about the Lions injury report, because this is where things get interesting. Detroit is dealing with some significant injuries of their own, and the biggest name on their list is safety Kirby Joseph, who did not practice on Wednesday due to a knee injury. Joseph is one of the best young safeties in the league, and if he can't go, it's a massive advantage for the Vikings passing game. McCarthy could have a field day attacking the middle of the field if Joseph is sidelined. Left tackle Taylor Decker also practiced on a limited basis with a shoulder injury, and if he can't play, that's another huge break for Minnesota. Decker is one of the best pass blocking tackles in the NFL, and losing him would give Van Ginkel and Greenard a much easier path to the quarterback. Cornerback Terrion Arnold practiced fully and should be good to go, but he's been inconsistent this season, and going up against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison could be a nightmare for him. If Kevin O'Connell can scheme up some favorable matchups, this passing game could explode. So here's the bottom line. Viking Nation, the Vikings are getting healthier at the right time, but they're still banged up in key areas, and the Lions are dealing with their own injury issues that can swing this game in Minnesota's favor. This is a must-win game for both teams. The Lions are sitting at the top of the division, and the Vikings are desperate to stay in the playoff race. If McCarthy can step up and play like the first-round pick everyone believed in, if Van Ginkel can wreak havoc on the Lions' offensive line, and if Darrisaw can keep McCarthy upright, The Vikings have a real chance to pull off an upset on the road. But if the injuries pile up, if McCarthy struggles, or if the defense can't stop the Lions' high-powered offense, this season could spiral out of control in a hurry. So what do you think, Viking Nation? Are you confident in this team heading into Sunday? Or are the injuries and uncertainty too much to overcome? Do you believe J.J. McCarthy is ready to lead this team to victory? Or are you worried he's not ready for this moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe the Vikings are about to shock the world and steal a win in Detroit, hit that like button right now and show the rest of the NFL that Viking Nation never backs down. And listen closely, because the next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's season. If the Vikings win on Sunday, they're back in the race. If they lose, the season could be over before Halloween even ends. Subscribe, comment, and stay locked in, because this ride is about to get even crazier. Skol Vikings!